Hello everyone. I'm a 36-year-old man. My ex-wife, Mia, who is 29 years old, and I were married for just 3 years before our relationship took a turn for the worse, revealing her true nature. Mia and I dated for 1 year and 4 months before tying the knot. Early in our relationship, I shared my ambition to start my own business. To achieve this goal, I worked tirelessly, juggling a part-time job alongside my full-time job. The earnings from my day job covered my rent, bills, and groceries, while the income from my part-time job went into funding my business venture. Mia, on the other hand, worked as a sales manager at a retail store, and I assumed she had some insight into running a business. Initially, she was quite supportive of my entrepreneurial aspirations. She even encouraged me to work harder to expand the business. However, after we got married, her enthusiasm waned. She began to show less interest in the business and would sometimes playfully suggest that I focus on other important matters if the business wasn't progressing as I had hoped. Despite her remarks, I remained determined to pursue my dream, believing it was achievable. Fast forward to the first year of our marriage. After numerous meetings and much persuasion, I received a significant opportunity when one of my wealthy friends, Jack, offered to invest in my business. Mia and I were ecstatic about this breakthrough, and she feigned support, encouraging me to stay focused and get things done. My business was a small logistics company, a dream I had cherished for a long time. I firmly believed that with proper management and sufficient funding, my logistics company had the potential to become one of the largest firms in our state. With the financial support, I made strategic investments in my business, including the purchase of additional delivery bikes, bicycles, and a truck for transporting goods. The expansion of our bike fleet led to a significant boost in business, resulting in increased earnings. I also allocated some funds towards marketing and signage, which proved to be a wise decision as it yielded positive results. However, I noticed a substantial shift in Mia's attitude shortly after securing the investment. Prior to the influx of money, Mia and I had rarely fought over significant matters. Even if we had disagreements or arguments, we always resolved them before bedtime. However, after the funding came in, Mia and I found ourselves engaged in frequent disputes, and the primary source of contention was money. She insisted on using the funds for shopping, moving to a larger apartment, and going on a week-long vacation, all at the expense of my business investments. When I opposed these ideas, she became angry. I could understand her desire for shopping and even agreed to provide her with money to purchase a Chanel bag she had set her sights on. However, her demands exceeded this reasonable request. She argued that she was pleased with the investment because she anticipated benefiting from it. I was taken aback by her demands because she was well aware of the challenges my business had faced and how diligently I had worked and prayed for a financial breakthrough every day. I had not expected her to make such demands at that particular time. Even if I had indulged her by taking her shopping, moving into a larger apartment, or going on a vacation, those expenses would have eventually come from the profits my business generated in the long term rather than from the money meant for investment and business growth. I repeatedly explained to her that the money was earmarked for my business and was intended to be returned with interest to my investor friend. However, all my explanations fell on deaf ears, and she persisted in her incessant demands. She began to label me as selfish and accused me of trying to claim all the money my friend had provided, even though I hadn't earned it. When her words failed to sway me as she had hoped, she resorted to emotional tactics, crying throughout the night. Our arguments continued for the entire week, and when I could no longer endure it, I reluctantly agreed to take her shopping with a budget in mind just to restore peace. Afterward, I invested the remaining money into my business, making this concession for Mia's sake because I loved her, even in her moments of insensitivity. As I mentioned earlier, with the addition of more bikes and bicycles for deliveries, my business flourished, allowing us to expand our coverage to new areas. It reached a point where I decided to resign from both my main and part-time jobs to dedicate more time and effort to my business. I went to great lengths to ensure its growth to the next level, and the income one generated each month covered my portion of the rent and bills, with the remainder used to repay the loans I owed. Around 2 months after my business began to do better, Mia stopped chipping in for our household expenses. She said I was making good money now and could handle the household finances like a man. She also mentioned that she was tired of splitting expenses evenly when I earned more than twice her monthly salary. Initially, I thought she was kidding, but when she refused to contribute to rent and other bills that month, I realized she wasn't joking. I tried to explain to her that it wasn't smart for me to shoulder the entire financial burden of the house because it would set me back instead of helping us move forward. However, she refused to listen. On top of that, I had to repay a loan to my friend with a hefty interest. She told me that she knew people whose husbands earned less than I did but still managed to support their wives, kids, and families independently. She questioned why I couldn't do the same. Her question was hurtful, but I didn't let it bother me. At that point, I was exhausted from constantly arguing with Mia. It seemed like she had changed once money started flowing in. Since my business wasn't flourishing as much as I hoped, I ended up covering all the household expenses. I paid the rent, all the bills, bought groceries, and filled up the gas tank every month on my own. I have to be honest, all of that definitely had an impact on my business. It bothered me that Mia acted like the business was solely mine. I started the business because I didn't want to be stuck in a 9-to-5 job with endless overtime, and I didn't want that for Mia either. My goal was to provide a good life for both of us and potentially give our future kids a better life than we had. But the more Mia made demands and had expectations, the more it seemed like she had no interest in my business. I married her because I believed she had a talent for business, and we shared the same vision. She used to talk about how she wanted us to own multiple businesses together across the country and even around the world. However, when the time came to grow the one business we had together, she changed completely. She stopped contributing to the household expenses and chose to spend her earnings on clothes, shoes, wigs, and whatever she wanted while I handled the bills. I put up with this for over a year and a few months while trying to grow my business. Sometimes she would borrow my credit card for shopping with her friends and max it out. So you can imagine the financial stress I was going through. It felt like I was taking one step forward and 3 steps back from my business, and this continued for several months. Unfortunately, I couldn't keep it up because I had to repay the borrowed money with interest, and I ended up in serious debt, forcing me to temporarily shut down my business. It got so bad that I had to sell all my motorcycles, my personal car, and even our family heirloom jewelry to clear the debt. By the end of it all, I had nothing left, not even a single penny saved. During that tough period, I went through a lot with Mia. When I had to close my business, she started saying hurtful things to me. She mentioned how we could have enjoyed a good life with the funding we had, but due to my mistakes, I lost everything. To make matters worse, she changed her attitude completely. We used to share household chores before, but when my business failed, she told me to handle my own laundry, cook my meals, and clean the house since I was at home without a job. She took every opportunity to remind me that she was making money while I was unemployed and businessless. I was actively searching for jobs to cover my expenses after such a significant setback. My main concern was survival, not my business. Around that time, I noticed she always had a smile on her face and was constantly on her phone. She started bringing home expensive gifts like bags, jewelry, shoes, and clothes. I knew she couldn't afford them on her salary. It would take her at least 4 months of saving to buy just one of those pricey bags. When I questioned her about this new habit of coming home late with expensive items every week, she would verbally abuse me and remind me that I had no right to question her because I was jobless and couldn't afford those things for her. With her new demeanor, I understood that our intimacy was gone, and that's precisely what happened. She avoided sleeping in the bedroom because she knew I might try to get close to her. And just like that, our marriage turned into a nightmare very quickly. I believe it was around 2 to 3 months after she began bringing home expensive items. It was painful and suffocating to endure her outbursts, but at that time, my main focus was finding a job as soon as possible. Then one evening, she came home and mentioned that she wanted a divorce. She explained that she couldn't bear being married to me any longer and confessed that she had married me because she thought I had a promising future, but she wasn't impressed with how things had turned out. I didn't try to plead or change her mind. I sort of expected it was coming. I was already exhausted with everything and believed that divorcing each other was the right decision. Despite my love for her, I couldn't continue living with or being married to a woman who constantly ridiculed me, insulted me, and made me feel worthless whenever she got the chance. so I signed the divorce papers. She moved out of the house before our divorce was officially finalized. Shortly after our divorce, I was at home reflecting on my life when she sent me a message on Facebook. When I opened it, I found a picture of her in a bikini on a yacht with Jack, my wealthy friend. This was the same friend who had funded my business, and I couldn't help but feel deeply betrayed. At that moment, everything started to make sense. The extravagant gifts, perfumes, her late returns home, the change in attitude, and ultimately her desire for a divorce. I couldn't even shed tears because what she had done was beyond expressing my heartbreak through crying. I even felt sorry for her because Jack had a history of using women and had been divorced 4 times. In response to the picture she sent to taunt me, I wrote, "Enjoy it while it lasts," and then blocked her. Moving forward was challenging, especially without a job and someone to provide both financial and emotional support. It was incredibly tough, and there were days when I contemplated ending everything because I was in a very dark mental place. I ended up moving in with my younger brother because I couldn't afford rent or even meet my basic needs. Some of my friends tried to lend a hand and assist me from time to time. For months after Mia left me, I finally secured a job. The pay wasn't as good as my previous job, but it was a motivating fresh start for me. I worked diligently, put in extra hours, and for 2 months, I split the rent and bills with my brother before finding my own place. At my new workplace, a senior colleague of mine, Lily, who is 47, showed a special fondness for me. She was notably older, and I couldn't figure out why she would bring me lunch, suggest going out to eat together, and so on until I asked her about it. Lily revealed that I reminded her of her late brother who had passed away when he was younger, and for some inexplicable reason, I looked and walked like him. Over time, Lily and I grew very close, and when I shared my past and the business failure with her, she offered to help. In just a few months of knowing each other, I had already fallen in love with her. She showed me a lot of care and love, something I hadn't experienced during my 3-year marriage to Mia. With Lily, I felt genuinely cherished, and I didn't even realize when my heart started to feel love again. Unexpectedly, help arrived. Lily followed through on her promise and connected me with someone who provided funding, owing her a favor. Additionally, Lily generously invested a substantial amount of money in my business with the understanding that I would repay her on a monthly basis. She also shared valuable ideas to help my business grow, expand, and offer something unique compared to my competitors. I understand it might seem too good to be true, and that's exactly how I felt. In the span of 9 months after Mia left me, honestly, if someone had told me I would bounce back so quickly, I wouldn't have believed it. My only disappointment was that Lily didn't see me the same way I saw her. She viewed me as a beloved brother and assured me of her ongoing support as long as I held up my end of the agreement. Despite our nearly 11-year age difference, it didn't bother me when Lily turned down a romantic relationship because she didn't want to mix business with pleasure. It stung a little, but I moved past it and decided to concentrate on rebuilding my business. Even though it felt like starting from scratch due to selling my motorcycles, I didn't mind. Operating a logistics business was something I truly desired, and I was passionate about it. With determination and the financial support provided, my business started thriving again, and I couldn't be happier. Just 3 weeks ago, 1 year after Mia and I got divorced, I got a call from Mia. She expressed a desire to meet with me. I figured she might have heard about my recent success and wanted to see it for herself, so I agreed to the meeting. I invited her to visit my company's location to show her how well things were going, partly as a way to make a point. When she arrived, she looked noticeably thinner and didn't give off the impression of a wealthy man's wife. Deep down, I wanted to ask if everything was okay, but I refrained. My main goal was to demonstrate that I was thriving even better than before, and I'm pretty sure she got the message. However, that's not the issue now. The problem is that she called me again yesterday and asked if I would consider taking her back because she was facing difficulties with her new husband. Update 1. Thank you to everyone for your comments. I'll address some of the common questions raised in my original post first. No, I have no intentions of reconciling with her. I posted this here solely to gather your opinions, which I have received. Some of you have asked if I knew Mia well enough before marrying her. The thing is, I believed I knew her, and during our dating period, she never displayed any of these behaviors. She never spoke disrespectfully to me or ridiculed my business when I mentioned it. It was like the Mia I dated and the Mia I married were two different people. I wasn't exaggerating. I've taken the advice given to me and decided to cut ties with her immediately. My business is my top priority now, and I can't afford to repeat the same mistake. However, I met with her 2 days ago, and this time her face was covered in bruises. She expressed regret for divorcing me, acknowledging that even when I had little money, I treated her well and like royalty. She apologized for leaving me. She shared that she wanted to leave her current husband because he was physically abusing her, and she couldn't take legal action against him because he was extremely wealthy. She also feared losing all the benefits he provided for her. Furthermore, she revealed that she was unemployed, and her husband prevented her from working since he supplied everything she needed, which made her feel suffocated. She complained bitterly about his infidelity and how he brought different women home daily without considering her feelings. From everything she shared, I couldn't verify how much of it was true. All I could confirm was what I saw on her body. It was evident that she was suffering physically, mentally, and emotionally. Additionally, she looked severely sleep-deprived. In our 1 year of dating and 3 years of marriage, I had never seen her in such a terrible state. As she spoke, I couldn't help but notice the timing of her revelation. It was clear that her abuse didn't begin when my business started thriving again. It must have started from the early days of her marriage to him. However, she had never reached out or complained about it until she heard about the success of my business. So I decided to toy with her, as someone here had suggested. I provided her with all the reasons why I couldn't take her back and watched her plead and beg with me. She confessed that she had been deceived by appearances and had believed it was better to be a wealthy man's wife, even if he didn't love her, than to be the wife of a poor man with all the love. But now she claimed to have learned her lesson. After she begged persistently, I asked for some time to think it over, giving her a glimmer of hope. I couldn't wait to extinguish that hope and make her experience the same pain I'd endured. I'll provide another update as soon as I exact my revenge. Update 2. Hello everyone. Trust me, this is not evolving into a love story because that story has already ended. I want to make it clear that I still can't get over her betrayal. Regardless of how hard I've tried, I can't erase the image of her humiliating and mistreating me during my difficult times. It's quite shameful that she tried to come back to me after treating me as if I were worthless. It's now been a month, and I can't even begin to list everything she did to try to win me back. She even went so far as to share graphic photos at my request, and we've been chatting consistently since. I told her I would think about it. It's almost like she handed herself to me on a silver platter. All I needed was 1 month, and she made it incredibly easy. Throughout that time, she did everything I asked of her. To really surprise her and string her along, I even gave her a kiss on the cheek, and she couldn't stop smiling and waving as she walked to her car that day. Someone here suggested that I set her up and disrupt her unhappy marriage, and I found that idea appealing. I intentionally requested graphic photos from her because I knew she would comply. After all, desperate situations call for desperate measures. So after accumulating enough graphic pictures, I collected our chat messages in which we discussed her divorce plans and all the negative things she had said about her husband. I unblocked Jack and sent him all those photos and chat screenshots. Along with them, I left a message saying, "Helping you avoid a disaster, buddy." I waited for him to read the message, and as soon as he did, I received a call from Mia. She was crying and breathing heavily on the phone. When she could finally speak, she informed me that her husband had kicked her out of their house and seized everything he had bought for her because, in his words, she came with nothing, so she should leave with nothing. After crying and collecting herself, she mentioned she was on her way to my place to officially be together as we had planned. I took the opportunity to confess that I was the one who had sent everything to her husband and that we could never be together because she didn't deserve any love. When she heard that, she cried even more and pleaded with me not to do that to her. But I had already done it. I warned her not to show up at my place or company, or I would have her arrested. Following that, I blocked her contact, and I can only imagine the heartbreak she must be experiencing right now. It was quite audacious of her to think she could have it all. I can't thank all of you enough. Your advice and suggestions were invaluable, and I wouldn't have been able to repay her so satisfyingly without your help. Alright, that was a fun story. Now let's move on to another exciting one. Story 2. About a year ago, while I was working offshore, my wife got involved in an affair with a married coworker. I only discovered this after I returned home and lost my job. I almost feel like I stayed with her because I was afraid of being unemployed. Most of my family members are deceased or out of contact, and I've gradually lost all my close friends over time because my profession keeps me on the rig for months. I acknowledge that I bear some responsibility for staying with her after she cheated on me the first time. Just 2 weeks ago, I caught her cheating on me again, which prompted me to serve her with divorce papers. To provide a complete picture, let's rewind about a year ago when she first cheated. Around a year ago, I faced financial hardships due to unemployment. It was in 2018 during the oil crisis, and I worked in the oil and gas industry offshore. When jobs became scarce, our savings dwindled, primarily because my wife spent recklessly. While I did have some savings, I used them for the down payment on our house. She had an okay job, but I was the primary breadwinner. If you're familiar with oil rig jobs, you'd know mine was highly stressful, dangerous, and required me to stay offshore for months at a time with only a few weeks off. I lost my job, and because all my experience was in offshore positions, I couldn't find any other work. Employers weren't hiring, and this was quite a blow for me. I've been working since I was 16 and had never gone a month without a job, so I felt shattered. After 5 months of unsuccessful job hunting, I stayed home all day. My wife was the sole breadwinner, but most of our money was going toward paying credit card bills, the mortgage, utilities, and groceries. Even though I was collecting unemployment, it only went so far. The crisis hit me hard, especially since we had just made a substantial down payment on a brand new house. All my savings and reserves had gone into that. The job market was so tough that I couldn't even find work as a janitor. Can you imagine what that did to my confidence? As for our backgrounds, I'm 25 and my wife is 26. We've been together since high school and didn't attend college, mainly because we had kids at a young age and had to grow up quickly. We have 2 daughters, aged 8 and 6. During my unemployment, I tried to be productive by cleaning the house daily, looking after my kids, taking them to school, cooking, and handling household chores. My wife was the sole earner, so I aimed to make her life as comfortable as possible. I even gave her back massages after her stressful workdays. However, my self-esteem was at an all-time low. I tied my self-worth to being the family provider, which I wasn't accomplishing at the time. I began to suspect she was having an affair when she started coming home late. For example, she'd arrive home on Monday around 5 p.m., but on Tuesday not until around 9 p.m. or so. Her excuses ranged from heavy traffic to girls' night out to working late. She worked hourly, and I could see her paycheck. It didn't match the amount of overtime she claimed. It seemed like she was working 80 hours a week, but she was only getting paid for 45 to 50 hours. We had a joint account, and her paycheck was directly deposited there. I'd been using the same account even when I was employed. Consequently, I felt like she was growing distant from me and the kids. Sometimes I would talk to her, but she seemed absent-minded, like she was mentally checked out of our lives. She also began texting frequently and seemed overly eager when responding to her messages. She tried to hide it, but having known her for so long, I could tell something was off. She had secured her iPhone with both fingerprint and password, and I didn't know the password, which left me feeling stuck. Whenever I brought up my concerns with her, it escalated into heated arguments. She'd make jokes about me not contributing enough, despite the fact that I was doing all the household chores. She consistently avoided taking responsibility for coming home late. When I questioned the inconsistencies between her paycheck and the overtime she claimed, she'd get defensive and assert that I had no right to question her earnings. I even contemplated following her after work to find out where she was going, but that would mean renting another car since we only had one family vehicle. I didn't have the money to rent another car. This went on for several weeks, but one night we both got drunk at home. She became especially intoxicated and passed out, so I used her finger to unlock her iPhone. To keep it brief, I discovered a series of text messages revealing an ongoing affair with a coworker. This affair was both physical and emotional. She wasn't saying she would leave me. She was seeking attention from her affair partner. She enjoyed the excitement and novelty of the affair, viewing her coworker as someone who validated her enough for her to engage in an extramarital physical relationship. This guy had been flirting with her for over 11 months, and their physical affair had been going on for 9 months, starting when I was offshore. The affair partner is married, so she was meeting him secretly at my house when I was offshore, while I was at work, and even in the park. I spent the entire night taking pictures of her text messages. The next day, I confronted her, and she admitted to the affair. I should have ended the marriage, initiated a divorce, or at least separated from her, but I wasn't in a position to do so. I desperately wanted the relationship to work because I had recently made a substantial down payment on our new home. I had been saving that money for years, and now I was unemployed, using it to pay off the credit card debt we had accumulated due to our shopaholic habits. After catching her cheating, things were never the same. We couldn't discuss the affair because it would make her break down in tears. I spent much of my time consoling her as she talked about how she never wanted it to happen. I couldn't confide in anyone else about it because even the thought of doing so would send her into a breakdown. I couldn't tell her to quit her job because we needed the money. She claimed to have ended things with him, and I exposed the other man to his spouse, which led to him quitting his job there. About 6 months after the affair, I was fortunate to find a well-paying job as a field service technician. While it required occasional travel, it was better than the offshore job where I was away for months at a time. Since I caught her cheating, she has been struggling with depression. After I found a job, she decided to quit hers. She's become accustomed to me handling everything. She doesn't do housework, rarely cooks, and has this idea that arranging a threesome with her and another woman is some sort of penance for her infidelity. During this time, I couldn't make sense of her actions. I had centered my whole life around her, and now there was this emptiness inside me that just wouldn't go away. The few times we've managed to talk, she usually explains it by saying she felt disconnected from me and enjoyed the attention. The only information I have about the affair comes from the text messages I found. In my eyes, she wrecked 2 families, as the other man confessed to his wife, lost custody of his kids, and even joined the military with hopes of being deployed to a dangerous place. She claims he pursued her for months, and because I wasn't around, she was weak and gave in to his flattery. However, the text messages show that she was just as enthusiastic about it as he was. I can't forget all the awful things I read in her messages when I discovered them, and it makes me sick. Now she's unemployed, spending her days shopping online, watching TV, or playing video games. She frequently has breakdowns and talks about ending her own life, but she won't seek help. I felt trapped with her, like if I left, she might either harm herself or end up completely destitute. I didn't want to be responsible for causing more pain after I'd already been devastated myself. After I'd been working for 5 months, my self-confidence returned, which led to numerous arguments because I disapproved of how she treated me and our kids. I urged her to improve, to take care of household chores and cooking, separated my finances from hers by closing our joint bank account, borrowed money to pay off our credit card, and then closed that too in an attempt to curb her spending habits. She resisted every step, accusing me of being controlling and unfair, and she began giving me the silent treatment. 2 weeks ago, I went on a business trip to service a client's machine about 120 miles from our home. Originally planned as a 2-day job, it finished faster than expected, so instead of staying the night at the hotel, I decided to drive back home. I tried calling my wife, but she didn't answer, so I assumed she was occupied with the kids or something. I checked out of the hotel and began my drive home, nearly 3 hours in total. About 5 minutes before arriving home, I realized she hadn't returned my calls. When I called her again, it rang a few times before she picked up, sounding out of breath, which set off alarm bells. She seemed surprised when I mentioned I was on my way home and promptly hung up. My suspicion that she might be cheating had been at the back of my mind, but it wasn't until I reached my driveway and saw an unfamiliar car leaving that I began to seriously suspect she had someone over at our house. I rushed inside the house, noticing the front door was unlocked, and immediately realized the unfamiliar car had to belong to the guy escaping from my place. As I hurried to our bedroom, my wife met me at the bedroom door. She looked disheveled, wearing a bathrobe, and sort of tried to block my path, asking why I was home early. I pushed past her, and upon entering, I inspected both the bedroom and bathroom. I found used condoms and an unpleasant odor in the bedroom, and the bed was messy. At this point, there was no need for her to admit anything. My expression must have said it all. She quickly said, "I can explain. I inquired about the kids," and she told me she dropped them off at her friend's house. In that moment, I couldn't fathom that she had cheated on me again. She had sent my children away so she could be with another man in our bed. This time, I had enough self-respect not to fall for her tears. She was acting promiscuous and manipulative. I informed her of my decision to get a divorce and told her she didn't need to explain anything. She kept apologizing, saying she wouldn't do it again. D-Day occurred 2 weeks ago, and I've already served her with divorce papers. I possess evidence of her infidelity and her unfitness as a mother, so she can't turn that around on me. My plan is to use this against her to gain full custody of my kids because she truly isn't a suitable mother. It's astonishing that I supported her through her cheating on me. Instead, I should have been the one who needed support, but due to my insecurity as a man, I failed to realize it.